a good 50 seconds.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
you're
say,
saying-
and Troy's probably not gonna be here, he got assigned to jury duty, and he actually got assigned.
Oh, is he on this
to a
case
judge.
today?
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He
Yeah,
said
they're
it-
picking the jury today. I think.
Yeah, and they actually started the trial, so he said.
Which one is he on?
I don't know, it's some murder case out of KC or something.
Oh, great, that would be my luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna last a few days.
Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, May 16th, 2023. It's time for our monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of the Glasgow Electric Plant Board. This time, I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on tonight's agenda will be the approval of the agenda. I'm sure everyone's had time to look over it a little bit. If there's not any questions or anything, anybody wants to give a motion on that?
Motion for the agenda?
Motion. Larry.
Second.
Have a second by Oliver. All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, we have our agenda. Next item is consider the approval of the minutes of the previous month's business meeting. And I looked over them. Did anybody see any discrepancies on the minutes? Everything looked in order to me, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous business meeting.
I make a motion.
Motion by Rowlett,
Second?
second by Lowry. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. Item number 3, consider the approval of the EUDS engineering consulting bid and contract to assist with obtaining FEMA disaster relief funds. And of course, the contract is not to exceed $15,000 if it's approved, and this contract replaces the 90-day emergency contract, which the board approved on the April 25th, 2023 meeting.
Yeah, so just a little bit of more background on this whole process. So, FEMA allows for 90-day emergency contracts when catastrophe, some sort of disaster strikes and you need to get immediate help and don't have time to go out for bids. But ultimately, they want engineering firms and these consultants to provide a bid, and they want entities like us to go out for bids. So we entered that 90-day contract with EUDS to start the process of obtaining FEMA funds, and we actually did, between the last board meeting and this board meeting, there was some work that had been done. But also within that time frame, we completed the bid process, and EUDS was actually the only bidder. And so what we're simply doing is replacing the 90-day emergency contract that we put in place with an ongoing contract that doesn't have that 90-day time limit, but it still has the $15,000 not to exceed amount. And all of the hourly rates are the same as they were in the emergency contract. So somewhat of a formality, but one that we're going through just because FEMA wants, the board of these entities like us to approve it, even though the amount is only $15,000. So that's the background.
Okay.
Any questions on any of that? It seems a little, I know it seems like it's just semantics. It's just getting everything right the way it should be. So.
Okay. So we'll break it down into 2 votes then. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid from EUDS to assist the Glasgow Electric Plant Board with obtaining FEMA disaster relief funds. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion?
Motion by Lowry,
Second.
second by Oliver. Any questions on that? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes on that one. And then I'll entertain a motion to approve a contract with the winning bidder, which was EUDS, to replace the existing 90-day emergency contract with EUDS. And of course, the contract amount is not to exceed $15,000. Do I have a motion on that?
Make that motion.
Motion by Rowlett. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Lowry. Any discussion on that? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, that motion also passes. I think that's taking care of that. On to number 4, we'll consider the approval to grant the chief technical officer temporary authorization to execute any documents in the absence of the EPB superintendent or chief financial officer.
Yeah, and so the background here is that the Little TVA Act, which we operate under, assigns the duties of letting contracts, approving purchase orders and all that to the superintendent. And a previous board action, which predates, I think, all of us, except maybe for Glenn, but predates me, and it was to have the chief financial officer be able to do those duties in the absence of the superintendent. We thought both Melanie and I were going to be on vacation at the same time and out of the country, but that's not going to be the case. But we still thought it was a good idea to proceed with, in the absence of both of us, to have a third person that could, approve purchase orders and sign contracts if needed. And so that's the purpose of this. It's really only the chief technical officer would only be given that duty in the absence of both myself and the chief financial officer. So
I was going to ask you, that would just be, both of you guys got to be gone before this would kick in.
Yep. Yep.
And temporary, that means just for this one situation, or
Well,
just
No, I think the temporary would
until we
be-
change it?
Yeah, until we change it. So the way that we're operating right now is the action that the board took possibly back in, 2019, or I'm not exactly sure when it was. It's still in effect. That's the way we're operating. So that if I'm gone, the chief financial officer has the ability to approve purchase orders, let contracts in my absence, under the same guidelines as I would do it. It has to be, if it's over 20,000, the board would still have to approve it before that purchase order was approved by the chief financial officer and chief technical officer, so just like I have to do. So it's really just, again, because we thought both were going to be out of the country at the same time, but then the schedules changed, and that's not the case. But our thought is just to let this, put this in place. There's no harm in it,
That's my response, that you never know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll read the motion, and I'll entertain a motion to grant temporary authorization to Chief Technical Officer to execute documents in the absence of the EPB Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion.
Motion by Oliver.
Second.
Second by Riley. Is there any other questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. On to number 5. We'll review some bids for the HE2 demo and disposal project.
Yeah, so with this one, we haven't had a chance as a board to really talk much about the HE2 tower. So HE2 simply stands for Head End 2, and it's a piece of property on the north side of town that is roughly 7 acres and has an old tower on it that we used for at one time, but it really hasn't been used in a while. And we went through, it's in a state where we need to make some updates to it to get it in compliance with FAA regulations and so on. What the staff and I discussed and what the staff recommends and I agreed with was we need to take the tower down. Well, then we were approached by a group that wanted to take responsibility for the tower and essentially lease it to us. So we put together an agreement that was really a good agreement for the leasee, but they, for whatever reason, they just didn't follow through. And no need to really get into those details, but they didn't follow through, so we terminated the contract. And so now we're back in this situation with a tower that needs updates and, buildings in disrepair and so on. So, but because the board hasn't had a chance to really talk about this and digest it, ideally I would like a motion to go forward with the low bid to remove the tower and the buildings and the satellite dishes that are there. However, you know, I also would understand if the board would want to think about this for the next month and have a chance to go see the situation or talk with me or other staff about it in more detail.
Does the tower serve any purpose, any functioning?
For us, it does not.
Usefulness.
There's nothing on it at the moment, is there any?
Not for us, no.
Yeah. Is there anything even on it that is in
There's
service?
there's probably some amateur radio antennas that may be in use, but we used it primarily for getting the Louisville and Nashville off airs back years ago, when we still had them.
And that's why I was given the name Head End too, because there's satellite dishes up there, and there was that tower that helped us provide cable TV service, but we're not using it for that anymore.
In some ways, does the presence of the tower there needing some kind of repair and update create a liability issue
Yeah.
for the plant board? That if
does.
somebody's on that lot and there's an accident?
That, and right now, it's questionable whether we're in compliance with FAA, but we have time to get it back into spec, but, you know, yeah, there's definitely a liability.
So much more liability in keeping it than getting rid of it.
Mhm. Yes.
No anticipation that it would ever be of value.
So, you know, we're not in the tower leasing business, you know, for us to go get in the business of getting the tower back up to spec and then trying to find people to lease space on it and so on. And even with the condition of the tower, Eddie, what would you say? Can we even keep it maintain it at its current height?
We could, it would cost more than what your bid is to tear it down.
Yeah. So there, you know, it would be a business plan, I guess, to put together to say, okay, we have to put all this money to get it back up to spec, and then we need to we're turning into like a landlord then, because we really don't need it, you know, so.
I'm assuming the land there's worth more than the tower.
I would say that the land is going to have significant value in the future, you know. It's a 7-acre, it's on Loden Road. Do you have a better description of where it is than that?
You know where Glenview
It's
Church
church,
is, Wise
yeah.
off there, so it's right across the road. pretty
That
much.
connects to the outer loop.
Yep.
Takes you from there at Glenview.
Yeah, so it's a nice piece of property.
But we would keep the property for now.
We keep the property, yeah. At a minimum, if the board didn't make the motion to accept the entire bid and, you know, remove the tower and everything, at a minimum, I'd like us to approve removing the satellite dishes in the buildings, because even if there was the decision made to keep the tower, we would need new buildings. You know, the top of the buildings are just beyond repair. Satellite dishes they're 4 acres, you know, they just need to come out. So.
But the tower's not safe anyway.
The tower is
That's
not.
what I understand.
Right, the tower we can't just sit with the tower as it is. We would have to make an investment to get it back up to.
We make
spec.
a larger investment to improve it than to tear it down. Is that what I understood you to
Yes.
say?
How old are the towers? Or is
We
the tower-
inherited that tower from Comcast, we bought them out in 2001. So it's been there probably since the Glasgow cable system went into effect back in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. So
Repair a tower we don't need or take down a tower we don't need.
Okay.
And the satellite dishes eventually, right?
Pardon?
The satellite dish, you don't eventually get rid of them as well?
We want to get rid of those, yeah, there's like 7 of them, and even, yeah, those need to come out. They're just not, there's no use for them.
Got you. Is that a second phase after the dish is torn down, or do it all one time?
What I would,
Just answer.
ideally, what I would recommend is that we accept DTA's tower's bid to do everything, which is removing the tower for $25,000, the satellite dishes for $7,500, and the buildings for $14,000. And then just the miscellaneous removal of the debris and things like that for $4,000. And But at a minimum, I would like us to
Let's get the
do
time.
section 2, which is the satellite dishes, and section 3, which is the buildings. If we wanted to think
Dave,
about the
Dave, I
tower.
think too, so the board knows, I believe these bids are 30 day, good for 30 days or something, so you talked
Yeah.
about passing it to the next meeting, I want to be sure they,
But I think we could probably get them updated, you know. Just-
I mean, in case they wanted to review
Yeah.
it.
I mean, the second company will do it all for almost what the first one wants for half.
Right, yeah. What I talked with staff was, I don't want to get the board with it cold, which we're doing. I'm saying we can wait and make the decision on the tower, you know, next month. But at the same time, we're just delaying. I think what that would allow us to do is have conversations about, okay, go look at the site and those sorts of things. But I think the end result would be, we'd probably all agree that it needs to come down, you know. But-
Right.
So,
And it's your recommendation that they do come on down?
that's my recommendation. And the staff, you know, I actually talked everyone into, okay, let's try this leasing idea, and it
Yeah.
it didn't work, so. So
I understand.
they're more like, see, I told you. Okay.
No.
I think I'm good with it.
Me too.
I am too, especially if the cost to fix it is more than the cost
Yeah.
to tear it down. I mean, useless.
Yeah, really.
So then that would be, yeah, so what we would need is, you know, a motion then to accept DTS tower bid for the entire demolition of the tower.
Okay. And that'll include the buildings and satellites, right?
Yeah, the tower is satellites and buildings.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the DTA Towers bid to remove the tower, satellite buildings, and the full project
Yeah.
for the Glasgow Electric Plant Board's HE2 property.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Lowry.
Second.
We have a second by Rowley. Is there any other questions? Okay, all right. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. The motion passes.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I think it's definitely the right way to go, so.
All right. Number 6, we'll consider the first reading of the modification to the rules and regulations.
Yeah, so what you have in your packet is a current copy of the existing rules and regulations that we operate under, to provide our customers. And then we also have a copy that has all of the proposed changes in it. What I didn't provide is the marked up copy, because there's just a lot of notes and things like that I wanted to keep those just part of the business. And so this is a first reading. What I would like to do between now and the next meeting is give the board members the opportunity to read through the old rules and the proposal, and then, you know, as you're interested we'll set up a time to go through either one or two at a time to go through what all of the changes are, and you can see what we're proposing. The primary, what's driving this even being on the agenda is that we have extension rules that guide how we provide service to new customers. And right now, it says we can request a contribution in aid of construction, but there's no real guidance on when we would do that. So what that really does is it opens up the door to treat customers differently. And we really, you know, we want to make sure that our customers are all treated the same. And so in that section, what we're basically saying, the meat of that section is saying that for a single-phase extension, the first 250 feet, the electric plant board will extend the first 250 feet of primary at our cost and provide the transformer and the secondary, which is, you know, typically that's what we're doing. We're extending primary and we provide service to the customer at no cost. Anything over 250 feet of primary extension would be at actual cost. And the way we're going to do the actual cost, though, is we're going to look at what those work orders typically have cost us and come up with a per foot rate, so that it'll be simple for the customer to understand that if it's a 1,000-foot extension, they'll get the first 250 feet free or included, and then 750 feet at the rate per foot. Three-phase will be very similar, except it'll be 100 feet is what we're proposing that is included. And then the transformer and the secondary. Anything over 100 feet, the customer would be responsible for the actual cost. Now, it's more expensive to extend three-phase, but we would do it in a similar manner where we would come up with a cost per foot of three-phase extension. And so the customer just, it's simple for the engineer in the field and the customer to understand what we're doing. So, but this is really just giving you the two, and when we are making a modification, I guess the other piece of background is that when we're making a modification to rules and regulations like this, the board has to approve it. It's really our relationship between the plant board and the customer. So the board of directors has to approve any changes that we make. In addition to our board having to approve changes, we will then send our proposed approved document to TBA, and they have to approve it as well. So it's really, again, making sure that everyone understands, the rules and regulations on how we interact with our customers and so on. So what I would like, basically what I'm proposing is you got the rules as they exist today, you got a document that has the proposal but it doesn't show the changes between the two. What we can do, one-on-one or whatever, is just kind of go through all of the changes,
Are there significant changes between the two documents?
The biggest change is the one we just discussed.
What
Yeah.
section?
Let's see. But I think it's section. I don't remember, because we changed the number to. Oh, section 9.
9.
Yeah. The rest of it's, wording changes, just clarification on some things. But yeah, there was no other significant changes. But there's enough that it's worth, it's just worth the board reading it and understanding, looking at the two. So really no action to be taken on this item,
Would it be possible to, in a separate document,
Get the changes.
have the changes so that
Yeah.
we could
Yeah,
compare them,
Yep. And I was going to provide, but I don't, it's just, there's a lot of hands in it. And it's just not a document for public record, really.
Right.
So but yes, we can go through and show you the
It'd just
changes.
be, I think, it'd be simpler for me.
Yeah.
To,
That's the intent, is to walk through.
yeah.
Yep. And we can do that, one-on-one, we'll just set up a time and kind of walk through
Okay.
the changes. I can do that with each board member, or, Melissa could walk through the changes or whatever, but it's not really, it's not something to really do in a meeting like, because it would take it's going to take, 45 minutes or so to
Sure.
walk through it. So yeah, no real action to take, but I'd like to get together with each board member to walk through the changes and between now and the next board meeting. So.
Any other questions on number 6? If not, we'll move on to number 7, turn it over to Dave, for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so we got, the first item is the fuel cost adjustment. So this month was slightly higher than last month, just by 2%. The average fuel cost adjustment is 2.407 cents per kilowatt hour. And it's still trending 25% higher, so the June rate is still 25% higher than the 3-year average. And we're still in that era where, June of 2020 was really when the bulk of the shutdown was taking place, and, the bottom had fallen out of the fuel cost. Nobody was going anywhere and all that. So we are 20, and then it spiked the other way starting in 2021. So we're in this era where some of the comparison is, the 3-year comparison is something artificially low, and then it went artificially high, and now I think, this time next year, we'll start to have a good comparison on that to the 3-year average. But 2.407 isn't really too bad. Probably pretty typical compared to historical averages when you go back further. I think, what I would expect to see at some point is it's settling around, 2 or 2.2 cents, something like that. So, and then the next item is the outage report. So, the last column on the right is, we had 17 outages in April. One of those outages was a significant number of operations with a breaker, and it had to do with the tree that was, I think, going phase to phase behind, like, Estona. And what's that road?
Off Rogers Road.
Rogers Road, yeah. And we couldn't find it, and it was, it started at like 5 in the morning, and I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning by the time we finally found it. But in the meantime, there was a bunch of breaker operations. It wasn't pretty, but it just couldn't see the tree. It was just a thin branch that was going phase to phase, and it was acting as a grade conductor. So some of that's because of the time of year when the trees are greening up, they act as better conductors again, So, but otherwise, it was pretty typical month. We're starting, just on the tree topic, we're starting cycle trimming again. We brought tree KO back, and they're working through on the old agreement until June 30th. One of the things that you'll see in an upcoming board meeting is the bid for tree trimming for the coming year. And our budget was really only would allow us to have a crew working for about half a year. I pushed that to, we're spending a little bit more than what was in the budget to get into this cycle trimming, and then the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st, we'll be budgeting a higher dollar amount to really keep the cycle tree trimming going for the entire year, because it really makes a difference. So, but that'll be coming up at a future meeting. But yeah, everything else is pretty, 4 animal outages, 3 equipment, 2 unknown, and then 6 tree outages. So. And then I'm going to turn over to Wade for an update on the fiber to the home project, and after being a little bit delayed with getting going, we're rolling now.
Sure. So, Irvin has been here for just over 3 weeks, and the first graphic has the pie graph there on it. There's approximately 93,000 feet of main line fiber that has to be built for this project. As of today, we have just over 58,000 completed, so we're around 63% of the total project on the main line side has been built at this time.
And this is just, phase 1.
Right, yeah, just phase 1 area. The drops, which would be, from your pole line to your home, all that will be started after we get the main line put up. As far as underground construction goes, we have approximately 3,000 feet of conduit has been placed and set. Approximately 15 vaults, and that's in the Quail Ridge, Bob White Way area. We're currently in the Lakeview Boulevard apartment area right now working. Victory Lane, which would be right before you get there. It's being redesigned right now to kind of better suit our vault location and get those a little closer to our current infrastructure. We've not pulled any fiber in the underground sections at this point. The main reason being we want to get all the overhead built because a lot of this underground is just little short 25 or 50 feet runs, and we don't want to reel those off until we have all the aerial built, and then you'll have a lot of pieces of reels left that we'll be able to use that on. The only other thing is we'll be working with Kentucky Department of Transportation with getting the permits to cross the parkway twice. We have 2 crossings that we'll have to do crossing the parkway. So we'll be working with them to get that accomplished. But all in all, everything seems to be on schedule and on track.
Any questions on that project? And I know you said there's not much to update, but on the EV charging stations, we're still making progress on.
We are. Of course, it's another material lead times, our big hurdle, which we knew that kind of going into it. The primary pole's been placed, transformer bank's built. Our underground secondary route will be, within the next week or so, will be bored in. We have fulfilled all the approvals and paperwork, satisfied all of TVA's paperwork that we have to go through for environmental checklist, site approval, things of that nature. So it as well is on track and as expected.
Cool. So I think that's the end of the superintendent reports.
Well, thanks for that report, Dave. Thank you, Wade and Eddie, we always appreciate that. We'll move on to number 8. Got some new business and old business to discuss, and then we want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is another housekeeping item. So for reasons that are particular to the border states' relationship with the transformer. So, well, let me back up. What I'm asking the board to do is to amend the motion to purchase the 1,500 kVA transformer from Border States Electric that we approved at the January 24th, 2023 board meeting. And we're going to amend it to purchase that same transformer from Sturgeon Bay Utilities. So, and for reasons particular to the Border States Electric relationship with the manufacturer, so they're a manufacturer's rep, they're a distributor. And also, I think related to, I'm not sure exactly, but border states sales territories, Sturgeon Bay is in Wisconsin, we're in Kentucky. They weren't able to simply sell us the transformer and ship it to us. So it had to go to Sturgeon Bay, and we're gonna buy it from Sturgeon Bay Utilities. So what I'm really simply just asking is that the board amend the January 24th motion to make it that we're the seller of the transformer is Sturgeon Bay Utilities instead of Border States Electric.
Price stayed the same, just who they write the check to.
Price is the same. Yeah, this is the same transformer. So, but instead of, just having the January 24th motion be we're buying it from Border States, that's not what we're doing now. We're buying it from Sturgeon Bay, so we wanted to just clean up the details
And
on
it's
that.
territorial.
Border
for
States,
them.
yeah, for Border States, or
Yeah.
for the manufacturer.
Yeah.
They weren't really, they're not really saying, they're just saying, if you can just buy this from Sturgeon Bay, it's.
I got it.
So, I don't really know exactly why, but.
Okay. Alrighty, then I'll entertain a motion to amend the January 24th motion to purchase the 1,500 kVA transformer from Border States Electric as the seller to Sturgeon Bay Utilities as the seller.
Motion.
Motion by Oliver, second by Rouser. Is there any discussion? We understand what we're voting on here on this, okay? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. I think that takes care of tonight's business. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion?
Motion by Lowry,
Second.
second by Rouser.
Third.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Amen.